Crews at the plant have been struggling to deal with contaminated water elsewhere on site. They're trying to stop hundreds of tons of tainted groundwater from flowing directly into the ocean every day. They say radioactive strontium and cesium may have been leaking into the ocean since May 2011. TEPCO officials say 30 trillion becquerels of the radioactive materials may have flowed down to the shore in that time. That's well beyond the in-house annual emission limit of 220 billion becquerels. Cesium and strontium are easily absorbed into soil, so the officials say it's hard to determine the exact amount that got out. Radioactive water has been building up every day at the plant since the accident. It's a growing problem. The short-term solution is storage. There is no long-term solution. NHK World's Noriko Okada walks us through the issue.
Workers pour 100 tons of cooling water every day into the 3 reactors where the meltdown took place. The water comes into direct contact with molten fuel and becomes highly contaminated. Company officials initially thought they would be able to reuse the contaminated water to cool the reactors. But then they discovered groundwater was seeping into the reactor buildings. They had to adapt their plan to address the 400 tons of contaminated water being pumped out every day. The company installed devices that were supposed to filter out the majority of the radioactive substances from the water. But so far, cesium is the only substance they've been able to remove. The stored water remains highly contaminated with other materials. Company officials say they are now storing some 340,000 tons of contaminated water in 1,000 tanks. They plan to add more tanks to increase capacity to 700,000 tons. But the tanks have been hastily built. Experts have often pointed out how vulnerable they are to damage. And this isn't the first time leaks have been found. Company officials have reported another grim figure. 30 trillion becquerels of radionuclide substances have been discharged into the ocean since May 2011. They say 950 trillion becquerels of cesium had leaked into the ocean before that date. That means about 1 quadrillion becquerels of radionuclide have been discharged into the Pacific. One expert says stopping the flow of contaminated water isn't enough. He is calling for more research into its effect.
Radioactive substances are accumulating in the seabed and are being consumed by fish. High levels of radiation have been detected in some of the fish. We don't know the mechanism or how it's happening. This is something we haven't fully investigated.
Kanda says information about the contamination must be fully disclosed. He says that's the only way to allay growing fear and distrust in Japan and around the world. Noriko Okada, NHK World.
A nuclear lecturer says the low levels of radioactivity found in tuna caught near San Diego can produce a small increase in cancer risks. Daniel Hirsch, a lecturer on nuclear policy at the University of California, is concerned about the radioactive tuna caught in August last year that reportedly swam from Japan.
So the concern is that not any individual person eating one tuna is going to have a problem, but that over large numbers of people, the small increase in radiation will produce a small increase in cancer risks.
Researchers believe the fishes left Japanese waters about a month after the meltdown at the Fukushima nuclear power plant. The discovery has alarmed many people like Hirsch, but he says there is no easy solution either.
The fundamental lesson is to never let this happen again. We cannot live in a world that we're so dependent upon and continue to have events that release vast amounts of radioactivity into that environment. It comes back to us.
Most of the radiation was released over a few days in April 2011 after the incident. Unlike some other compounds, radioactive cesium does not quickly sink to the sea bottom but remains dispersed in the water. Fishes can swim right through it, ingesting it through their gills. Sophia Su, Reuters.
I just want the truth out there. A terrible nuclear accident. Radioactive gases leaked over Los Angeles and a government cover-up. The big question tonight, did the toxic fallout cause people, including children, to get sick and die?
That nuclear accident happened a long time ago, 1959, one of the worst in U.S. history, just 35 miles from downtown L.A. Tonight, Joel Grover and his team have uncovered proof 56 years later that the fallout from this accident is even worse than the government has ever admitted. Joel is here right now with the I-Team's year-long investigation. Joel.
Well, Colleen, you might be wondering why we should care about a nuclear accident that happened more than half a century ago. Because, as you're about to see, thousands of people in the San Fernando and Simi valleys have been secretly exposed to dangerous radioactive fallout. And there's evidence if you live close to the hot zone, you could still be exposed or even get sick. Behind this fence, the government has kept a secret. A secret this mother thinks killed her son.
There is no getting over the death of your child.
A secret this woman thinks is killing her sisters.
They don't care if we live or die.
A secret this man, who worked behind the fence, has been keeping for decades.
It's been eating me alive is what it amounts to.
It was the dawn of the nuclear era.
More towns may eventually become atomic cities.
And hidden in the hills above the growing San Fernando and Simi valleys, the Atomic Energy Commission oversaw the building of the Santa Susana Field Lab, 2,800 acres for testing rockets, and at the lab's Area 4, experimental nuclear reactors.
The others I worked with, they're dead and gone.
76-year-old John Pace worked behind the controls at Area 4's largest reactor. On July 13, 1959, he says something went terribly wrong. Did the reactor almost blow up that night?
Yes.
How serious would that have been?
It would have been just like the Chernobyl reactor blowing up.
A government press release said simply there had been a minor fuel element failure at the reactor, and there had been no release of radioactive materials to the environment.
Did the government lie to the public?
Yes, they did. And that's one of the reasons I'm here. What they've written in that report is not even close to what actually happened.
Our Unit 4 can report on a nuclear accident that happened very near Los Angeles.
20 years later, NBC4 broke the news for the first time that there had been a partial nuclear meltdown at Area 4 back in '59.
There was no large-scale exposure to nuclear radiation.
But John Pace says that's not true.
Dangerous radioactive materials were put right out into the air.
Yeah, right out into the air, yes.
Pace says the accident unleashed a massive amount of radiation inside the reactor, 300 times the permissible concentration, according to this now declassified document we obtained.
The radiation in that building got so high it would clear off the scale.
Pace says workers were told to open the exhaust stacks and let massive amounts of radiation out into the sky.
How did the workers feel when this stuff was being released into the air?
They felt terrible, and they had to and let it out over their own families.
Then, while fixing the damaged reactor, he says workers were told to open these doors day after day for weeks to release more radioactive gases into the air.
Where did the radiation go when you opened the door?
San Fernando Valley, Simi Valley over this way. You got Chatsworth over here.
Chatsworth, downwind of Area 4, is where Arlene Matthews' family lived.
There's no expressing the loss of a son.
Matthews lost her son Bobby, a Chatsworth High track star, to glioblastoma, a rare brain cancer linked to radiation exposure.
Every day his team ran across these hills to the Santa Susana Field Lab, and he's gone.
How many think your cancers or cancers in your family are related to Santa Susana?
I do.
For our investigation, the I-Team collected and combed through more than 15,000 pages of documents, which reveal what the government has yet to publicly admit, that there were secret releases of radiation from Area 4 that might have caused many cases of cancer.
Were the workers allowed to tell their wives, their families, what was going on?
No, they were not. They were sworn in secrecy.
But buried in the archives of NASA, which used part of the field lab, we found this document, which confirms the 1959 meltdown led to a release of radioactive contaminants. And in the files of the US EPA, we found interviews with former Santa Susana workers who we tracked down, like Dan Parks.
Did you witness releases of radioactive gas?
Certainly.
Park's job was to monitor radiation in Area 4 in the 1960s, and he says he frequently saw workers release dangerous radiation into the air from 3 different reactors.
It was supposed to be a secret.
And he says workers would often dispose of barrels of radioactive waste from reactors by taking them out to what were called the burn pits.
And they would shoot it with this high-powered rifle. It was a volatile explosion beyond belief. Fire, smoke. If the wind was blowing to the valley, it would blow it in the valley.
And he says that radioactive smoke blew right onto workers like Ralph Powell, an Area 4 security officer.
I saw the clouds of smoke engulfing. My friends are dying now.
You fear that you brought radiation home?
Yes. I was told that maybe I tracked in some radiation. I suspect it caused the death of my son. I've never got that out of my mind.
To this very day, radiation and toxic chemicals have been found in the ground and water of Area 4. The I-Team obtained these soil tests done by the US EPA, which found 423 hotspots around Area 4, places contaminated with high levels of radiation. And we found documents that show the radiation has moved off-site. It's been found in the dirt in neighborhoods to the south, in neighborhoods to the northeast, and in neighborhoods to the north in Simi Valley, including at the Brandeis Bardeen Institute, a place where 30,000 kids have gone to summer camp, including me when I was 11 years old.
If the wind is blowing and carrying radiation from Santa Susana, it doesn't stop because there's a fence.
Dr. Robert Dodge sits on the board of the Nobel Prize-winning nonprofit Physicians for Social Responsibility, which studies the effects of radiation.
There's absolutely a link to radiation and cancer.
The I-Team spoke with dozens of families.
I want an answer to why I have this cancer.
Who grew up in the shadows of Area 4, like the Seltzer sisters who grew up nearby in Canoga Park.
My cancer's back and it's about to spread.
And all 3 have battled cancer, including Catherine.
I've had, I don't know how many cancers.
You played in the water that ran off Santa Susana?
I played in the water, I swam in the water, I drank the water.
The water in the ground, the soil, can get contaminated, and it can move out of the site and into areas where people live.
The CDC commissioned Dr. Hal Morgenstern, an epidemiologist, to study cancer rates near Santa Susana. His team found that people living within 2 miles of the site had a 60% higher rate of certain cancers.
There's some provocative evidence, it's like circumstantial evidence, suggesting that there might be a connection.
People are continuing to die as we sit here.
These people want the government to finally admit what happened behind this fence. And they want a full cleanup of the toxic contamination for the sake of future generations.
See that this is done immediately before more lives are lost.
They'll never do it.
We have a lot of questions for the federal agency in charge of the nuclear reactors at Area 4, the U.S. Department of Energy, like why the government still hasn't publicly admitted that radiation was released into the air over L.A. for years. The Energy Department said no one would be available to talk to us for this story. Mr. Jones, I'm Joel Grover with Channel 4. Nice to meet you. So we showed up at a public meeting to try and talk to the Energy Department's project manager over the Santa Susana lab, John Jones. Will anyone from your agency talk to us at all?
My public people have talked to you. I've said all I'm going to say.
You've said nothing.
Thank you for your time.
And that was his final word. And one final note about the radiation found at the Brandeis Bardeen Institute, home of Camp Al-Anim, where so many kids have gone to summer camp. Brandeis told us it's been routinely doing soil and water testing on its land, and the results show the site is safe. We asked to see those soil and water tests, and Brandeis said no.
Well, isn't that something? They say no. Well, there's more videos to that, y'all. It shows that there are 9. Okay, I don't see a date from when this was published. Has a picture there, a toxic cover-up, and thousands asking why they're sick. The NBC4 I-Team exposes the truth about a major government lie. Joel Grover reports for the NBC4 News at 11 p.m. on Monday, September 21st, 2015. Published Tuesday, September 22nd, 2015. Okay, so I guess it's September 2015. The U.S. government secretly allowed radiation from a damaged reactor to be released into air over the San Fernando and Simi valleys in the wake of a major nuclear meltdown in South California more than 50 years ago. Fallout that nearby residents contend continues to cause serious health consequences and, in some cases, death. Well, I don't want to be reporting everything that they've already said, so let me glean this just a tad bit, y'all. Yeah, pretty much is. Okie-doke. Government cover-up. Yeah, it's been that. Well, y'all have got the gist of it. I'll post the link below if you want to go back and read everything that they just said. Okay, y'all have a good one.
Look inside the plant ahead of the disastrous March 11th anniversary sheds light on the colossal effort by plant operators to decommission the nuclear reactors, an endeavor that is expected to take up 40 years. The video tour of the plant starts off with rows of large tanks where the contaminated water used to cool the reactors are stored. Each container can hold up to 1,000 tons of water, which gets filled up in just 2.5 days. There are currently 930 of these tanks, and already 75% have been filled. Although the plant operators plan to increase capacity by an additional 700,000 tons, they're also running out of space. Officials hope that this water purification system will remove 65 different nuclear particles at a pace of 500 tons a day when completed. The operator TEPCO expects that the water's contamination levels will be reduced to low enough levels to release it into the ocean.
Have you ever noticed how weird it starts to get when you just stop breathing?
Although it's unclear how they will be able to overcome the public protest over this plan. But the most important task in decommissioning the reactors is removal of the fuel rods, a process which will begin in November. TEPCO will begin with the 1,533 spent fuel rods from the reactor unit number 4 and store them in this pool. Outside, work is underway to build a protective cover for transferring the fuel rods. There is still no plan to remove the fuel rods from the other reactor units, which are much more damaged than these. Although the government's aim is to finish decommissioning the plant in 30 to 40 years, the plan also relies on technological advances, an assumption that presents a profound challenge as Japan struggles to contain this daunting nuclear crisis.
Have you ever noticed how weird it starts to get when you just stop breathing?
This next item made a lot of U.S. consumers sit up and take notice today. Bluefin tuna caught off the California coast have been found to contain elevated levels of radioactive matter dating back to the Japanese earthquake and tsunami that led to that nuclear accident at the Fukushima power plant. I'll report tonight from NBC's Miguel Almaguer.
Today at the San Pedro Fish Market in Southern California, Don Cadota inspects the catch of the day and stressed his fish are safe to eat.
The word radiation creates fear in people.
The 15 bluefin tuna caught and tested off California's coast last summer showed low levels of radiation, but still 10 times higher than normal. Scientists say it's the first time a fast-moving migrating fish has been shown to carry radioactivity from Japanese waters.
We almost didn't believe it, to tell you the truth.
Dr. Nicholas Fisher, professor of marine sciences, co-authored the study.
Every single fish was significantly contaminated with 2 radioisotopes of cesium. And these are common waste products from nuclear accidents.
The research shows the bluefin tuna that spawn and feed in the waters near the Fukushima Daiichi nuclear power plant migrated some 6,000 miles, reaching Southern California just a few months after the disaster. Though the sample fish are contaminated, the levels are far lower than what's considered dangerous. Today, the FDA said they'll continue to monitor radiation levels in fish, and no public health concern has been detected.
I don't think I'll change the way that I eat, not at the moment.
It's definitely made me alter just a little bit, not eat quite so much.
Look at the tuna jumping right there.
Massive in size, up to 10 feet, and weighing more than 1,000 pounds, Pacific bluefin tuna is a delicacy, often eaten as sushi around the world. Scientists say the real test on how radiation affects migrating fish will come this summer. Researchers will look at fish that have spent more time in contaminated waters and could have even higher levels of pollution.
I think that is a distinct possibility, and we honestly don't know the answer.
Today, Japanese officials announced they'll conduct more testing in their waters. This as researchers here do the same. Miguel Almaguer, NBC News, San Pedro, California.